So, first off, how old is the house?
1957. So not crazy old by any means.
Got some history to it.
Yeah.
Were they the first and only owners?
No, somebody else had it for about 30 years before.
So you didn't look into the history to see who had it beforehand?
No.
Okay, because I wonder. Now, what was the significance of the bars? Did I miss that part?
Well, my grandpa according to my grandpa put the bars on the window because there was only one window in the bedroom because my grandpa was convinced some old woman was sneaking into the room at night.
Oh, so he thought she was real. That
she'd
break into the house and then break back out again.
Yeah, so his mind was, well, just put bars over the window and that'll be the end of it. But then, like a week or two later, he was like, "Nope, I'm not sleeping in the basement room anymore."
So your thought is that the old woman was residual?
I think
kind of
residual, yeah.
repeating.
But then again, the thing with the bed sheets is...
Yeah, if it was residual, how did the bed sheets come off there? That takes a lot of energy to do that.
Yeah, there was no way, because you're trying to rationalize it as anything that throws you for a loop you try to do. And I was like, well, maybe I jumped out of bed with such force, and I was giving myself too much credit. And I was like, there's no way.
They flew across the room.
I was like a $1.30 soaking wet back then. Like, there's no way. Never mind that there were no creases, but it was perfectly, like, just still tucked into the bottom of the bed. But everything else, both sides were untucked. And again, this was a bed that was tucked in so tightly. Like, I had trouble rolling over in at night. So for that to happen, to me, that was scarier than the old woman. Like, that was just... Because the old woman I could rationalize in some way. But that, I was like, there's no way I can rationalize that.
Yeah, no, I've thought about that, and I like. In the end, nobody knows for sure what the heck's going on the other side there.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they call it the unknown, right? It's for a reason. But the idea that things can still move around from back in the day. So my question would be: is if you did look into the history of the house to find out if there was a bedroom in that basement originally, and the old woman could have taken offense to how tight the sheets were and how perfectly done they were.
Yeah.
Like, no, I like it more messy, and then move them over. I don't know. It's a good question. So again, there are definitely examples of conscious energy, but the question is it a majority? Does anybody else have an experience?
I'd have to say there's probably different types. There's residual. There's common, like being to different buildings by myself a lot of times because I'm waiting for tours to come by. You experience different things, but then you can also hear what people are talking about, and everybody seems to have a little different take on what they're experiencing. So some could be residual because you hear the same thing over and over again, but then sometimes you hear something new that somebody's experiencing. So it could be a little bit of both. Like it could be some residual because they did something the same thing all the time, and that's what some people experience. But then there's some more of the reactive to what's going on because I've experienced both. Like the Hermitage, waiting down by the stable there, I heard the same kids playing out in the field on 2 consecutive tours. Like not the same night, in 2 different times. It was like you hear the barn door close and the kids yelling and playing around, and yet there was no kids near the Hermitage.
Whereabouts was this?
That was down by the laundry room.
Oh, okay, so at the back of the room.
By that window where William Black gets seen a lot. No, that's another story standing there. But I heard the same repetitive nonies and kids playing and the barn door closing on 2 consecutive tours. And the first time I thought, okay, that's cool. Then when I heard the same thing again, wait a minute, I've heard this before.
Yes, you have the wonderful advantage of you constantly standing there by yourself.
By myself, yeah.
In the dark, with the calm, with the silence.
Yeah. There's other stories about the Hermitage too, but even in the custom house, like being on the stairway, the cat, I felt the cat. And for me, to feel the cat was kind of hard because I do have the costume on.
Yeah.
And that statue that used to hang in the stairway.
Yeah, there used to be
that thing moved.
It used to be it was an art project. It was like a massive. It had to be 20 feet high.
Yeah.
And they hung it from the ceiling like this. Like it was going to attack you, basically, for those listening. The first time I came around the corner, I swear I almost screamed, like high pitched.
You just stand there, but I'm looking up at this thing, and okay, it's supposed to be still, and it's moving. So I'm looking to see if the window was open. I'm looking to see, trying to rationalize, but
you're seeing it kind of swing back and
just
forth.
hearing as people walk by, things they're experiencing, and on the tours when we had the ghost hunts. Just being up in the attic and down in the basement, just hearing because I'm there almost all the tours, so I'm just hearing different people's reaction. Some were
Yeah, I
here,
love that.
some I was hearing the same, especially the trike, because it started moving the one night and just freaked people out. Just hearing different stories, but so some of it was the same story I'm hearing, and then other ones I was hearing some new stuff all the time. So I'm thinking there could be a little bit of both.
That's great that there's validity, that some of the same stories keep getting
Yeah, you
repeated.
keep hearing the same their experience because you were standing, okay, this is what should happen, and then you hear it, and then someone else says, no, this is happening, like, and then some things being up there all the time, all of a sudden I hear something different.
Mhm.
So okay, I haven't heard that before, right? Or experienced different things. Like the one tour, I don't know what happened. The tour came upstairs, and there's 3 of us up there, and we felt some energy in the room, and we were waiting to get out. And usually there's a bit of a space in between the two. Well, something happened. It's like I don't know what. The next tour was like right behind the tour that just left, but it wasn't possible because they should have passed each other on the stairs, and there was nobody. They were the only one on the stairs. Like, so we don't know what happened. But once that tour finished, the 3 of us just got out of there quick. There was something going on up there in the attic that night.
I'll tell you that, yeah, that house had a personality of its own.
Oh, yeah.
But I want to tell you just quick because it kind of adds validity to your Hermitage experience, that location. And I don't think I've ever really talked about this in public because it's kind of disparaging one of the TV shows. But this is years ago, 15, 16 years ago, I did a show for the Space Channel that was called Ghost Hunting 101. And I'll tell you, their communication with us, everything seemed very professional and up. And then when they came to pick us up, right from that point forward, I was like, oh, we made a huge mistake. Because they were just joking about everything, like putting it down, thinking the whole thing was just to laugh over. So we got into the custom house first, and we watched them fake things. But we couldn't do anything. We weren't on camera talent. We were just behind the scenes. We couldn't do anything about it. We had signed a contract at that point, so we couldn't even leave. So we watched them, and I remember the one thing before they left, they took you remember the boots?
Yep.
Yeah, they took one of the boots that were found in the basement. They had like a legend about them, and they took it out of the room and threw it on the table in one of the other rooms and said, maybe they'll think the Dark Lady did it, and then left. And just as a side note, like it was a couple months later, it was Christmas time, and they were doing something at the custom house. And didn't I just see that on the TV show? They were filming the boot and captioned, maybe the Dark Lady did it. So they were right. But anyway, the reason I brought this up, so the second place we went to was the Hermitage. And like I said, everything was fake. Nothing real was happening. And this was off camera. I was standing in the back right by the laundry house where you normally stand. And I was just walked behind where the window frame is, and I was holding an EMF detector and standing there. Now, there's no wires. There's no pipes. There's nothing that can set it off falsely. And it spiked up to 10. Spiked up to 10, stayed there for maybe 10 or 15 seconds, and then went back down. Now, I swear, I was so thankful that those producers and their supposed psychic was far away. They didn't hear it go off. And I swear, I did not tell them. I did not, because I didn't want them having any real evidence on the show. But again, that's almost like the energy is passing. It's the exact same spot that you had your experiences. So something seems to
I
be
just know
back
somebody's
there.
just standing there. I actually stopped standing there.
What, you?
Yeah, I
You
did.
should be running into this stuff.
Oh no, I just changed where I stood, but I just it was getting a little too much. But I guess they were getting upset when I was there all the time. So something didn't want me there. So I obliged it.
It's a funky spot to stand. There's
is.
a weird energy there.
Any idea what might be causing it?
I don't know whether it's the energy of William Black, or is it perhaps based on stories I've heard of, satanic rituals being taken place there. Who knows?
I would go more with William.
But just you get in
Never a bad feeling, but it was just
it feels
feeling that
different.
somebody was there watching us.
It feels different.
Yeah. I'll tell you, you'll be there on the 13th?
Yes.
Yes, I'm looking forward to what's going to happen this season. Because, the Hermitage is one of my favorite locations to do tours. And by the way, it's not just a shameless plug for the tour. April 13th. But no, I'm happy it's coming back. We'll see if we can stir stuff up. So, I do, I mean, the idea of the conscious spirits, I'll tell you, that hearing your guys' experiences is starting to sway me into thinking that there are more that could be considered conscious. Does anybody else have a story that they want to
It's
have?
like backing on Paula's story when the thing attacked her horse. I had one of these little ghost apps when I used to take on the tours, just didn't believe it, just for fun. And just when this happened, I turned it on at the stable, and it said the horse's name, and she's got a weird horse's name, so there's no way it would come up. It said Aliyah, spelled perfect and everything. And then she started yelling at this thing, whatever, leave my horse alone, and it said, get out. So she says, if you don't be careful, I'm going to take sage, I'm going to smudge the whole barn. And it said, brave. Like, we left. So, obviously it was interacting with us, like, just because it was like, just one for one, so we left.
Well, the good one is when we were at Fort Niagara.
Yes, so Fort Niagara, for those who don't know, it's in Youngstown, New York, and it's from 1726 and has a violent and very dark history, so very haunted.
We were all sitting, remember we were in the meeting room, I guess it was. I'm not sure what it was, was it the dinner room or something?
Was it on the first floor?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Where we
this is
had
the main dining room.
Main dining room. Well, we're all sitting there, and this was with Con Hamilton, and I had, what was it, the meter?
EMF?
EMF, the one that had the gauge on it.
Oh, the ghost meter?
Ghost meter.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting playing with it, and I put it down behind a lamp, and it kept clicking as if there was something responding to it. And so I picked it up to have a look at it, and at that time Steph was saying, well, nothing's happening, what's going on? And the thing spiked to 10 for about a good minute, and then shut off. And I'm sitting there. I'm the one holding it, so I know I'm not doing it. And okay, that's interesting. So it was reaction to what Steph had just said to stir him up. This thing reacted, and then it stopped. And I know I didn't push any buttons or anything, so we were getting something, and I just okay.
Well, now what?
No,
It's
it just like so that was more reactive. So that wouldn't be residual
unconscious.
but I don't know what spiked it, but it was
see,
interesting.
You remind me of another experience from Fort Niagara. That's, again, going to disprove my point right now. But yeah, no, it's happened. Do you remember I don't know if you were there when the group from Paranormal Toronto came along? A guy named George and his team?
I think so.
They were more promotion. They weren't really full investigators. But he was right into it. And I remember we were up on the second floor in the chapel, which is considered one of the most haunted spaces. And I was standing in the back. I was the only one at the altar with nothing but darkness behind me, and then George in front of me, and then a group of about 15 in front of him. And George was doing a makeshift seance, and he asked that dreaded sentence, right? If something's here, prove that you're here. And after he said that, I swear, it was right behind me in the area where nobody's standing, and somebody said his name. Somebody said George. Male voice. And, the funny thing is, I could have said, oh, maybe I heard things. I could have questioned it until, like, a couple people in the front started screaming. So I know, oh, you guys heard it as well. And everybody ran out of the room. But, the chapel area. And I have to recommend, if anybody wants a paranormal experience, other than going to England or Europe, Fort Niagara just has a unique history to it that it'd be hard to find anywhere in North America. So I'd recommend it. And by the way, they don't pay me any royalties to say that.
There is a night at the custom house. I had my equipment set up by the mantle. And I believe that's the night I was seeing a shadow on the wall, on the ceiling. And I asked Dark Lady, are you here? On my recorder, you hear, I'm here now.
Now, the recorder, you said a tape recorder? Okay, so you got an EVP
Yeah,
afterwards.
that was an EVP.
Very cool. Now, sorry, which room was that?
Right by the mantle on the third floor.
Oh, in
Upstairs
the
in
attic.
the
attic.
Up in the attic.
The attic.
It's interesting.
And then once in my house, there is something in my house. There's a couple of them in my house. We were in the front bedroom, and the wife told them, leave here or go to the white light. On the recorder you hear, I don't want to.
See, I love when you hear certain EVPs. Show of hands, and I'll say how much of the podcast. How many of you have heard of EVP before? So, it's electronic voice phenomenon, basically a ghost voice. Oh, that's a good number. Good number. And have you ever listened to one and then played it for somebody else, and they didn't hear the same thing you did?